Well, hi everybody. Harry is back.
I'm finally here.
We missed you. We missed you. Although the podcast was really good. The information that Kim presented, and
It was.
followed by,
I
yeah,
I watched it. I watched it. It was really good.
yeah, really good. It's over on Kim's channel. We decided how we're going to alternate when we do the four of us.
Mhm.
We're going to do, Annie's channel, our channel, Kim's channel, and
Yeah,
we'll just make sure that the links are there.
yeah, it's awesome.
So you finally finished your podcast. You're not your podcast. You finally finished your PPT.
Powerful. Yeah, it's
Cool,
it's done.
cool. Well, should we get into it?
Yeah, it's 19 slides, more than I usually have.
Oh
So
wow. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I've got a couple of things to throw in when you've done your presentation. That's more mind blowing. Oh God, what happened to me yesterday is insane. Always seems to happen on a Monday.
it happens on a Monday.
Okay. Remembering the XY goats. Interesting.
I'm gonna find the one that makes it without the side.
Oh, it doesn't matter. As long as we can see it, doesn't matter, bro.
All right. So we're gonna talk about remembering, and then we're gonna do a play on words for the first few slides, and then we're gonna talk about the main topic about what these Yehudins are trying to do to us, and it's basic from the day one. It was happening in the garden. It's happening today. So remembering the zygotes, and I spelled it XY because X can make that Z sound when, for example, like Xerox. It's
Xylophone.
Yeah, exactly. So the zygote why we can't remember back that far. So the subheading is why you cannot recall your birth onto this world. And I misspelled everything in that because I'm going to show the double and triple meanings. The point I'm trying to make is a lot of words have more than one meaning. Of course, they have homonyms, homophones, all that stuff, but they're used for deceptive purposes.
Well, I think I told you, Harry, when we were chatting earlier, that the Chinese word for goat and sheep is the same word, yang. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. It is. All right, so I'm going to do a little play on this why you cannot recall. And so we'll go to that first. So warning, the defining of terms is necessary for knowing what is actually intended to be said. Most words have a double meaning and even a third meaning. So clarity and obfuscation can happen instantly based on the intent of the one relaying the information.
And I've got a really good example of that. Did you hear about Uncle Joe, about Sleepy Joe?
I don't know.
Well, I'll throw this in now because we're talking about double meanings. I'm not kind of hijacking your presentation, but I think it's a good time to interject. Well, apparently, Sleepy Uncle Joe went to a building site the other day, and he was talking to one of the builders who'd got a thermos flask in his hand. And Sleepy Joe said, "What's that?" And the builder said, "It's a thermos flask." And Sleepy Joe said, "What's a thermos flask?" So he said, "Oh, it keeps hot things hot and cold things cold." So Joe says, "Oh, I'm going to get one of them." So he went out and bought one, and the next day he takes it with him, and he goes out on his little rounds, and somebody says to him, "Hey, Joe, you bought yourself a thermos flask?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I learned about them yesterday. Apparently they keep hot things hot and cold things cold." And the guy says, "Yeah, they do." He says, "What you got in it, Joe?" He says, 3 cups of coffee and an ice cream.
Doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Keeps hot things hot and cold things cold. What you got in it? 3 cups of coffee and an ice cream. We're talking about knowing. We're talking about intent and meaning. Yeah, I just thought that was That just came into my head. When you said even a double and even a third meaning, it just popped into my head. So a little bit of humor in there.
So a lot of these definitions that I'm going to use, I got them on Etymology Dictionary. So just in case anyone wants to check them out. So we're going to talk about the word re. Property. I didn't know re was property, a thing or an affair. And then again, you can read all of the definitions, but I'm just going to touch on a few of them. So with reference to or used in legalese, re is in fact in the matter of, from that part of the world. And I didn't even know it. Re could be, I guess, real estate. Maybe that's where we get property. And then the next word in that phrase was member. Well, member, the general use is a body part. All right, and essential to an animal.
Yeah.
The next one is the ing. Now, ing, again, I never knew this either, but there's three forms of ing. One is the active verb. The other is the a cognate used in the German language, which was mistranslated for some time before the 13th century. It wasn't supposed to have a G at the end and so forth and so on. But like I said, you can read on all the different meanings of ing. The zygote, this is the one that kind of blew my mind. I speak Greek because that's my native language, but I never really thought about what zygote was if I thought about it in Greek. And it came to me that zygote meant a pairing, because the Greek word for pair is zygo, which is like an even number. So when something's paired together, it's even, right? Two of them.
Well, this is something that Crow 777 talks about a lot, the zygote being, and the context that he puts it in is when the sperm fertilizes the egg. At that particular point, then you've got the two coming together, the sperm and the egg, creating the zygote. Now, that's how Crow 777 puts it across.
And that's what the definition says. A zygote is the joining and yoked together. And biblical references always talk about you need to be equally yoked with your partner. And yoke is like a locking mechanism that goes around the neck of the animals that are pulling the plow.
Yeah, but phonetically, egg yolk is the same pronunciation. I wonder what the connotations between those two words are.
Yes. So you got the yoke that's holding these two animals that are pulling the plow. If they're not of equal strength, that plow isn't going to work. They're going to go in different directions.
That makes sense. They're going to go in a circle. Yeah.
So they're joined together and they're yoked together. And the zygote is it's a zygo, and that means a pairing. So there's a lot of different meanings that sound very similar, like we're talking about the yolk of the egg and the yolk of the fertilized egg and the yoking and joining of two. And then the other part, the word zygo, is also talking about the weights and measures. When you weigh something, it's called dosizis or zygo. And so you're balancing, you're balancing two things. So again, there's a connotation.
The XY that would be pronounced the same. I mean, that's clearly refers to chromosomes.
Yeah.
I mean, can you see already, Harry, how this is falling into what we just presented with the re-in meat 8, the re-in carn 8. It's all, wow, this is awesome. This is incredible.
Yeah, I like the reference you made yesterday with the 8 seconds in that movie.
8 minutes.
The 8 minutes, I'm sorry. The 8 minutes that the guy had every time he came back to that train episode.
Yeah, that movie was Source Code. We're going to do a podcast on it, I think, or we're not going to do a breakdown, but we're going to do a podcast on it. Because Kim watched it yesterday, Annie's going to watch it. I've watched it. You've watched it. So we're thoroughly recommending to our viewers to go and watch Source Code. It's from 2011. I was wrong. I said I thought it was from 2016, but it's from 2011. But wow.
All right. The next word in that sentence was the word why. Now, when you look at the word why, it's almost has the same letters as Yahweh. So surprisingly, are we really saying the tetragrammaton every time we ask a question? Why?
Probably, but I'm going to come to that at the end of this presentation. Don't say any bad words about Yahweh right now.
Don't say any bad words. Yeah, I know. I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But the Old English version of why, it just goes back to a pronunciation of something like what, with the H in the front. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So we'll move on to the word you, or you, as in the sheep. And of course, we already know that we're called a ewe because in reality, they see us as sheep. And let me go right back to the zygote real quick. The other part of the zygote is we may be a sacrificial goat in this existence.
Yep.
So, all right. So as we go past the you, we're going to go to expand on the you as the sheep versus just identifying who we're talking to. And the thing that is very interesting is that etymology took me right to, when I looked up you as in the sheep, it took me right to ovi or ovum. And there we go right back to the egg references.
Wow, I've just seen something there as well. Aren't cows considered bovine? B-O-V-I-N-E. So there's that ovi is right there in bovine.
Bovine or ovi. Yeah. Wow. So it for some reason it takes you right to ovi when they're talking about the sheep. And then the other word is can, and the word can is the ability to know, or not necessarily knowing, but being able to possibly know.
Do you know, again, it's interesting that there are 3 words in Chinese for can. In the way that we would use can in English, there are 3 different ways to use for can. Three different. Yeah, it's crazy.
And in most cases in our language, we misuse the word can or the word may. And in many cases, someone would come up to you and they'll correct you. Oh, can I use the bathroom? And they'll say, well, you may use the bathroom. Can you?
Yeah.
So, and then we have the word not. We have many ways of saying the word not, or pronouncing it, or using it, not as the negation, not as in like, I'm going to tie a knot, or something like, you ought not do this.
Or speed, at the speed of a ship is not.
Yep. And that's the nautical measurement of speed or distance.
Yeah. And naughty, just go back one slide. You just said naughty, nautical, naughty.
Yep.
Yeah. It's all there. It's all there right in plain sight. It's crazy. Yeah.
Then, of course, we have the one word I'm going to focus on a lot on is the word call. And one of the reasons why we can't recall who or what we've done in our life, or in the beginning of our lives, or our past life, is because we are being poisoned, and we'll go into that. So the call is to give to invoke your speech, or to cry out. But call can also be the covering over the face or head in childbirth.
I also thought it could be the umbilical cord.
Yes.
The umbilical cord. Yeah.
So the umbilicus and the caul, along with the placenta, are exactly what we're going to talk about when we are when we're sold off as the straw man, and we'll go into that. But the interesting story about the caul, which is where we get the word cowl, kind of like what Batman wears for protection.
Mm-hmm.
This caul was a cover over the head during birth, and among people who were born this way, because it's only like a small percentage that have this, they were considered to be gifted and have superiority over others. And if you were a sailor, they thought that if you're born with that caul, you would have extra protection while at sea.
Wow.
Against drowning. So
Wow.
this was a very, very prized possession. If you could have it, people wanted it.
Wow.
And we're going to talk about why it's taken away from us when we are born. And of course, the word birth. We know it means to be born, but it also means to be tied to a docking station.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to focus on the tertium quid at the very bottom. We're going to talk about what tertium quid is in the Greek. It's called the trito T. We've covered this in the past, but it means the third what. All right. And the three parts are the baby, the mother, and what the material is that is not the baby or the mother, or is it shared? And we're going to talk about how
I think from what I've researched that, you know, when you start with the zygote, the sperm fertilizes the egg. As the baby grows, the baby creates the placenta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to use its own DNA and the DNA of the mother, not the father's DNA. So it's the baby itself, with the help of the mother's natural body functioning, that creates the caul and the placenta. So it's actually when we're born, it's actually our property because we made it. You know, but it's taken away from us.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to go into that a little bit. So let's break down what the tertium quid is. The tertium quid and the genetic modification of the straw man. So a good example of the tertium quid is taking chocolate and peanut butter and creating what we all know as the recess.
Yeah.
All right. So in our human function, you got the placenta and the caul. They're creating a birth certificate, all caps, straw man identity.
Yep.
It's with these two items. Once you're born, they cut this off and they take this off and they take all this material. They weigh it as if it was a person.
Yeah, this is your pound of flesh that the Bible talks about. But the interesting thing is, Harry, I mean, since I've been looking at this this particular topic of the straw man, because there are no capital letters in Chinese, you just have the characters. They can't do it. It's not done in Asia. All the Asian languages that don't use the English alphabet, there's no capitals. So if they want to highlight something or emphasize it, they either make it bold or they underline it when they type on a letter or an email or something. But they don't have it. They only have it in the West. It's the same as when you get married in the West. The wife will take her husband's family name. That doesn't happen in Asia. The lady keeps her own name. She could get married 10 times and her name will never ever change. If they have kids, then the kids will take on the father's family name. But the wife doesn't. So the straw man, the way that the straw man is created in the West cannot be done in Asia. Impossible.
And I think that's probably why a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is perpetrated on the West, not on the East.
I agree.
So this straw man that's created, they create this all caps birth certificate identity, and then you go on when you're in the public, you go on and you're using this name, and you get taxed and you have to go into contracts using this, and in the court of law, you are fined and go to jail because of what they identify as the straw man.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about what is the reason why we can never remember anything. Well, if you recall, the thing that we need the most is nutrition from our food. And the one thing that we see with the creation of these factory farms is they never replenish the nutrients in the soil, so that when you do grow food, it's going to be beneficial to you. Now, Dr. Eric Berg has a great YouTube channel. He's got hundreds of thousands of subs.
Yeah, he's
good. And he has great information on his site. If you can type in the benefits of iodine and the 8 unexpected benefits of iodine, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I think they're must-watch videos, and I think it's good to sub to this guy.
Cool.
So let's look at trace minerals in specific. So trace mineral deficiencies, I believe, are engineered to happen. Iodine helps to some of those benefits of iodine. They help to shrink or eliminate cysts in the ovaries, uterus, testes, and thyroid. Iodine helps regulate estrogen levels, and that's key in reproduction for both men and women. Too much estrogen, you can't have a baby. In men, too much estrogen, you can't have a baby. You can't have sperm to impregnate. Iodine also reduces skin tags and warts. That's a problem with a lot of people. Iodine also breaks down scar connective tissue. So if you have a scar and it doesn't seem to heal, or you're afraid it might tear open one day, if you have enough of the iodine in your body, you'll see that scar almost disappear completely.
And all this information is taken directly from that doctor's website, yeah,
yes.
That doctor's
Yeah.
channel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Iodine also lessens depression, and it also prevents cystic acne, which is a major problem for a lot of the youth today. And again, that's because it regulates estrogen.
Wow.
That's a big problem for a lot of people. So, and just talking about iodine, it's only one of the over 120 trace minerals that we actually need.
Wow.
So let's look at Genesis 2:16. Interesting number, that 2:16. It's twice of 108, right?
Yeah, and it's 6 times 6 times 6. Yeah.
That's correct. So man is commanded to eat of the garden. And I highlighted how it's in the interlinear. Could it be that it's already poisoned with herbicides and pesticides to begin with? Or even contaminated with genetically modified foods? The one I'm thinking, yeah, of course. The one I'm thinking, though, is that the corporate growers are the ones that are commanding that we eat from their food that is lacking these trace minerals.
Yeah.
This would be the Yehudans' built-in population control system.
Makes sense.
So if we're eating from what they're producing and they're not putting in the minerals that are needed to make us healthy and strong, they can flip on the switch whenever they want to and poison us, or give us vegetables that are good, and then we live longer. But
well, the trace minerals in the soil are going to be depleted if they're not. Each time you harvest, and if you're not replacing those trace minerals, next time you plant, they're not going to be in the food. That's exactly what you're saying, right? Yeah.
And what's going on is the people who know how to grow properly will rotate the soil, meaning that they'll grow one crop during one season, and they'll grow a different crop during another season, and then rest it. And they know how to do it. And those things, and letting the animals graze, those are all the ways that they replenish all those nutrients. But they don't do it.
Crop rotation is what they used to call it.
Yeah. So then we're going to go to the lanthanum drugs, and we've touched on this in the past, so I'm not going to belabor this point. But what's happening is a lot of the pharmaceuticals that we're using today are exactly what the ancients would have described as the river lethe.
Yeah.
So you're taking these drugs that supposedly help with a lot of the aging population. Some of them are drugs that are sucking the fat right out of the brain because they're thinning the blood so that you don't have a heart attack or a stroke. But in reality, what it's doing, it's wreaking havoc on all your other body parts.
Didn't we talk about the river lethe in the podcast we did called "If You Die Before You Die, You Won't Die When You Die"?
I don't remember if that was the one it was in, but it was in an older podcast that we've done. But again, what I'm saying is the pharmaceutical industry is taking some of these heavy metals and they're forming them into drugs that supposedly will help the body, but in reality, it's causing all kinds of other problems. And you look at the highlighted section over here, the half-life of this thyroid medication, well, is between 23, that's a very popular number nowadays, 23 and a half milliseconds.
Wow.
All the way to 1.2 to the 11th years. Can it give us a smaller window?
10 to the power of 11. That's insane. Wow.
The half-life, they can't really come up with what the real number is. So.
You know, I was watching Anne-Marie's podcast, latest podcast earlier, and she's, you know, in the last 2 or 3 podcasts she's done on her channel, she's talking so much about memory and memory loss and how, you know, things are becoming harder and harder to remember from, you know, stuff that we've learned in the past or stuff that we've learned during the course of our lives and so on and so forth. You know, and I think to a certain extent, more and more of us are having that same problem. Yeah.
Well, like we've said in the past, if you're taking a drug that's coming from this lanthanum family, and we can just lop in aluminum and mercury, those are all in similar families. Heavy metals, they're not going to be good for you in the long run. They may do something good in the short term, but in the long term, not going to be a good thing to be taking them.
Wow.
So
right.
The bottom line is, you know, the point I'm trying to make here in this podcast was, if we eat the right things, then we're going to probably live and be healthy. But if we don't get the right things that we need, we're going to have problems. So if these elite scum are in control of what we eat and drink and breathe, and of course, if they give us these things, how can we ever remember to avoid the things we're supposed to avoid? Because we're in that cyclical, you know, repeating stage, like you talked about in the podcast you did just last night.
Well, we've just had the running out of time thing pop up, so we're going to have to start to wrap this up. But there's a couple of things that I want to throw in there, Harry, and they're not connected to what you've just been talking about, because I think that was really self-explanatory. But you remember my bottle of milk episode? You remember my granddaughter's water bottle?
On the same day.
Yeah, well, I'm in class yesterday with this guy that I've spoken about many times. He's so switched on, it's crazy. And he's got together with one of the girls in the same class. She's a beautiful, lovely human being. I'm really glad that these two, because they're awesome, both of them. She's not as switched on as he is. And he was telling me a story yesterday that they went to the cinema. Right now, everybody here, just about, you go out and everybody takes this little, it's not a bottle of water as we think. It's like a little glass thermos flask with a screw on top. You can put tea or hot water or whatever you want.
Or ice cream.
Well, yeah. And they got one, and they went to the cinema watching a movie, and they're both drinking out of the same cup, bottle, whatever you want to call it. And he said, the lights came on, teacher, and we're getting ready to go home. And I'm like, where's the fucking water bottle? And she's going, I don't know, you had it. No, you had it last. I didn't have it. And they're fucking arguing about who had it last. They can't find it anywhere. So they gave up and they went home. They went back to her house. She walked in the bedroom and the fucking water bottle was on the next to her bed. The one that they were drinking out of in the fucking cinema. Now, how insane is that?
It's the same story that you had.
Then I told him, where's my bit of paper gone? Then I told him, I'm like, wow, this is insane. So I told him my milk bottle story and my granddaughter's water bottle story. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, are you telling me that this is normal? And he said, well, I could give you a few more examples, teacher. He said, but you know, I'll let you know next time. And I said, okay. So I said, are you telling me this is normal? And he got a pen, a piece of paper, and he wrote normal in inverted commas. So what that means, I don't know. But he wasn't fazed. I'm blown away by what he's telling me about, and she's backing him up. She said we were arguing over who's got the fucking water bottle.
Yeah.
I'm like,
isn't it funny? Isn't it funny, the connection?
Yeah.
Yours was a bottle of milk.
Yeah.
Your granddaughter, bottle of water. And theirs was a thermos water. Is it something to do with liquid?
It gotta be. But the other thing, and we've got 5 minutes left. The other thing I want to get in, Harry, and I think I sent you an email about this. I got reamed last night in Telegram, one of the Telegram groups, because somebody had mentioned the Yahweh character, and of course I jumped in there and you know, said psychopathic God of the Old Testament. Go and read Jeremiah 4 verses 23 to 28 that we always talk about. You know, the guy's a psychopath. And this guy came back to me and he went, Nige, if he was to come here tomorrow and do the same thing, would you call him a psychopath? Look at the state of the world, bro. He says, we don't know what the state of the world was at that time. You know, and then I'm thinking, God, you and I, Harry, we talk about going about the middle path, about not taking sides. And here we are taking a side, calling the Yahweh character a psychopath because of what he did to the earth. But when I watched the movie Noah, he's talking about the Yahweh creating a flood in order to cleanse the earth of evil. So
right, but remember, it could be that the God of this world, or the false God of this world, has just hijacked the name.
Yeah, quite possibly.
I think he's hijacked the name. He's impersonating the real God.
Quite possibly.
And he's using his name too.
Yeah, quite possibly. But we can't be 100% sure. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to refrain in the future from calling him a psychopath. You know, that doesn't mean that I'm leaning towards, it means that I don't know. I don't know. And in order for me to stick to what I want, which is the 6 o'clock on the analog clock, which is the middle path, is to not call him a good guy and not call him a psychopath, because by doing one or the other, I'm essentially taking a side. So I'm not going to do that anymore. No, and I'm going to stop referring to him as a psychopath in our podcast, because we don't know. I mean, and to be honest with you, after this guy gave me a right bollocking in Telegram, we were going backwards and forwards. He went over and subbed to the channel. So, you know, it was all good. It wasn't an argument. I'm like, he's throwing this at me, and I'm like, bro, I hadn't actually looked at it like that. I hadn't thought of that.
He was being the devil's advocate.
Well, I think he was being more, what's the word? Not necessarily being devil's advocate, but I think he was trying to be more practical, more logical. And because it really hit me when he said, what would you call him if he came back tomorrow and did the same thing with the state that the world's in today? And I'm like, you've got me.
Well, look, we have said in the past that we think that somewhere between 60 and 75% of the people who are probably walking around may be NPCs, right?
Mm.
So if he's saying that if the true good God is seeing that 75% of his people are no good, you may
Well,
decide to pull.
it's interesting that you bring up the word hijack, because when we were talking last time, and I said that if you go to the interlinear where it says God created man in his own image in Genesis 1:27, go to the interlinear, and in the Hebrew it's chose, right? Well, who are God's chosen people? Maybe the people who call themselves God's chosen people have hijacked. No, it's not you, it's us. We Yehudans are God's chosen people, when in reality they're not, or when in reality they're possibly not. That's the hijack, because everything's a deception.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But it was I'll just put it this way: it's food for thought. The guy kind of gave me another angle to look at my perspective from, or the perspective that I was coming from. He threw something, I can't remember his name, but thank you. You know who you are. And I really mean that from the heart, because it kind of like, oh, bro, you're reading the text, you're making assumptions, but you don't know why.
Well, we know historically that when these people went into captivity, at one point, supposedly they forgot their God's name.
That's true. That's true. So that
So
could be yeah.
These yahoos, that's why they were called that, remember?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, guys, we've got less than a minute left, so we're gonna finish off here. Zoom is cut us down to 40 minutes now, even when it's just two of us.
So just the last note on this, just look at nutrition. Maybe we've been commanded to eat just for the purpose of culling our numbers. Could be that they want to keep us ill and not remembering anything. So just that's the point I wanted to make. We have to make good choices of what we eat and how we eat and when we eat. Not when the clock says to eat, but maybe when you're hungry only.
We'll pick up on that next time. Love you guys.